Admiral Vextar stood before the massive galactic map that filled the command center wall. The holographic display showed thousands of star systems, most colored in the deep purple of Zelkari control. His scaled fingers traced across the projection as he reviewed the latest expansion reports. "Sir, the Third Fleet has completed pacification of the Koran sector," reported his aide, a younger Zelkari with nervous twitches. 17 new worlds now serve the Empire. Vextar nodded with satisfaction. The Zelkari Empire had grown beyond his grandfather's wildest dreams. They controlled nearly 80% of the known galaxy, and their military might was unmatched. Advanced technology, superior numbers, and ruthless tactics had crushed every species that dared resist. "What about the Outer Rim territories?" Vextar asked, zooming the display toward a spiral arm marked with yellow warning symbols. "Still monitoring, sir. Our long-range scouts report several primitive civilizations. None pose any threat to Imperial interests." The display highlighted a small blue world orbiting an unremarkable yellow star. The data file showed basic information. Third planet from its sun. Primitive radio signals detected. Simple chemical rockets observed. Estimated population around 8 billion beings. "This one appears particularly backward," the aide continued. "They call their world Earth. Our sensors detect no faster than light capability, no energy weapons, no shields. They barely reach their own moon." Vextar laughed. A harsh sound that echoed through the command center. 8 billion primitives playing with chemical rockets. They would make excellent slaves once we need their system's resources. "Should we add them to the expansion list, sir?" "Eventually. Focus on the civilizations that might actually fight back first. These humans will still be throwing rocks when we arrive." The Admiral dismissed the display and turned away, already forgetting about the small blue world. He had more important matters to consider. The Empire's rapid growth required constant attention, and there were always new species to conquer. Meanwhile, billions of kilometers away in the same solar system Vextar had just dismissed, Commander Heijin Park stood on the bridge of something that would have shocked the Zelkari Admiral beyond belief. The UES Incheon hung silently in the shadow of Saturn, its hull stretched over 2 kilometers from bow to stern. The massive Dreadnought was one of 15 similar vessels, hidden throughout the outer solar system. "Status report," Commander Park said quietly, watching her crew work at stations that hummed with advanced technology. "All systems operating at 98% efficiency," reported her first officer. "Fusion reactors running cold, stealth fields holding steady. Long-range sensors show no alien activity in the inner system." Park nodded and walked to the observation deck. Through the reinforced transparent aluminum, she could see Saturn's rings spinning slowly in the distance. Hidden among those ice and rock fragments were weapons platforms that could vaporize an entire fleet. Similar defenses surrounded every planet in the solar system. Dr. Min Seo Kim approached from the science station, carrying a datapad filled with sensor readings. The elderly scientist had spent most of her life working on the project that created ships like the Incheon. "The Zelkari long-range probe passed through the system again yesterday, Doctor," Kim reported. "Our masking technology worked perfectly. They detected nothing but primitive radio broadcasts and chemical rocket exhaust." "How much longer can we maintain the deception?" Park asked. Dr. Kim smiled. "As long as necessary. We learned much from that crashed scout ship 50 years ago. Their sensor technology is actually quite basic compared to what we have developed. The story of humanity's secret fleet began with that crash in the remote mountains of Korea in 1975. The alien vessel had been damaged, its crew dead, but its computer systems remained partially intact. Earth's governments had worked together in unprecedented cooperation to study the technology and prepare for what they knew must eventually come. "The Zelkari Empire believes they are the apex predators of this galaxy, Doctor," Kim continued. "They have grown overconfident through easy victories against unprepared species. That overconfidence will be their downfall. Park studied the tactical displays showing the positions of Earth's hidden fleet. Each ship represented decades of human ingenuity, combining reverse-engineered alien technology with innovative human engineering. The Dreadnoughts were faster, more heavily armed, and far more advanced than anything in the Zelkari fleet. Commander, we are receiving a priority transmission from Earth Command, announced the communications officer. Park returned to her command chair. Put it through. The holographic display showed Admiral Sungmin Kang, overall commander of Earth's defense forces. His expression was grim. All fleet commanders, we have detected a significant Zelkari force moving toward our system. Intelligence estimates indicate a standard conquest fleet, 12 heavy cruisers, 30 destroyers, and approximately 100 support vessels. Park felt her heart rate increase slightly, but her voice remained calm. Time to intercept? 72 hours. They are moving at standard Imperial cruise speed, clearly expecting no resistance. Dr. Kim stepped closer to the display. Kang's expression grew even more serious. Dr. Kim, Captain Park, all commanders. We will attempt peaceful contact first. Earth's governments still hope we can avoid bloodshed. However, if the Zelkari attack our world or our people, Protocol 7 is authorized. Protocol 7. Park had trained for this scenario countless times, but she had hoped it would never be necessary. It meant the full revelation of Earth's military capabilities and humanity's emergence as a galactic power. Understood, Admiral. The Incheon will maintain position and await further orders. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in thoughtful silence. Park looked around at her crew. These men and women represented the best of humanity. Engineers, scientists, warriors, and diplomats all working together. They had spent their entire careers preparing for this moment. All hands, this is the captain, Park announced over the ship's communication system. In 72 hours, we may face our first combat against an alien force. Earth Command will attempt peaceful first contact, but we must be ready for any outcome. She paused, thinking about the weight of history on their shoulders. For 50 years, humanity has worked in secret to prepare for this day. We have built these ships not for conquest, but for protection. We will defend our world, our people, and our freedom. If fighting becomes necessary, we will show the galaxy that Earth is not helpless. Throughout the ship, crew members acknowledged the announcement and returned to their duties with renewed focus. In engineering, fusion reactors were checked and rechecked. In the weapons bays, graviton cannons were calibrated for maximum efficiency. Dr. Kim approached Park once more. Commander, do you think they will listen to reason? Park considered the question carefully. She had studied everything Earth's intelligence services had learned about the Zelkari Empire. They were ruthless conquerors who had never shown mercy to weaker species. I hope so, Doctor. But hope is not a strategy. If the Zelkari choose violence, they will discover that Earth has teeth. Far across the galaxy, Admiral Vex Tar completed his daily reports and prepared for sleep. His dreams would be filled with visions of new conquests and expanded territory. He had no idea that his primitive targets had been watching his empire for decades, learning their weaknesses, and preparing a response that would shake the foundations of Zelkari power. In 72 hours, the galaxy would change forever. The Zelkari conquest fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of Earth's solar system exactly as predicted. Admiral Vex Tar stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Destroyer of Worlds, watching the primitive star system through his tactical display. Sir, sensors confirm our intelligence reports, his aide announced. No defense platforms detected, no military vessels in space. The third planet shows standard electromagnetic signatures of a pre-spaceflight civilization. Vex Tar smiled with the confidence of someone who had conquered 47 worlds without serious opposition. Begin standard subjugation protocol. Target their major population centers for demonstration strikes. Once they witness our power, they will surrender quickly. The fleet moved inward, weapons charging for what they expected to be an easy bombardment. Vex-Tar had performed this routine so many times, it had become boring. Arrive, destroy a few cities, accept surrender, establish occupation forces, move to the next target. Admiral, we are detecting an energy signature approaching from the asteroid belt, reported the sensor operator, confusion evident in his voice. Probably debris or a small asteroid. Ignore it. Sir, the signature is moving under power. It appears to be artificial. Vex-Tar turned sharply toward the sensor station. In his centuries of conquest, no primitive species had ever possessed faster-than-light technology. Show me. The display zoomed in on a sleek vessel emerging from behind a large asteroid. The ship was small compared to Zelkari warships, perhaps 1/10 the size of the Destroyer of Worlds, but its design was completely unfamiliar. Unknown vessel, you are entering Zelkari territorial space. Vex-Tar broadcast on standard galactic frequencies. Identify yourself immediately or be destroyed. The response came in perfect Zelkari language, which shocked everyone on the bridge. This is Captain Junho Lee, of the United Earth ship Seoul, representing the people of Earth. I carry Ambassador Sujin Choi, who wishes to speak with your commander regarding peaceful relations between our peoples. Vex-Tar stared at the display in disbelief. A primitive species that spoke perfect Zelkari and claimed to want diplomatic contact? This had never happened before. How do these creatures know our language? He demanded. Unknown, sir. Our intelligence indicated they had no knowledge of galactic civilization. The human ship moved closer, maintaining a respectful distance, but clearly showing no fear. Captain Lee's voice came across the communication channel again. Admiral, we request permission to meet under standard galactic diplomatic protocols. Ambassador Choi carries an offer of friendship and cooperation from Earth's united governments. Against his better judgment, Vex-Tar found himself curious. You may approach under escort, but any hostile action will result in your immediate destruction. 20 minutes later, Admiral Vex-Tar found himself in his diplomatic reception chamber facing two humans. Captain Lee wore a military uniform that seemed both practical and formal, while Ambassador Choi was dressed in elegant civilian clothes that somehow commanded respect. Admiral Vex-Tar, Ambassador Choi began, bowing slightly, in what Vex-Tar recognized as a gesture of respect, rather than submission. Thank you for agreeing to meet with us. Earth's people have been aware of galactic civilization for some time, and we hoped to establish peaceful relations. Aware of galactic civilization? Vex-Tar repeated. Our sensors show your world has barely achieved orbital flight. Choi smiled politely. Your sensors show what we wanted them to show, Admiral. We have been observing the galaxy for decades, learning about different species and their cultures. We know about the Zelkari Empire's expansion and your treatment of conquered peoples. The ambassador's words carried no threat, but something in her tone made Vex-Tar uncomfortable. She spoke like someone who held information he lacked. We know about the Koran massacre, she continued quietly. The enslavement of the Thekmari people. The destruction of the Valdris homeworld when they refused to surrender their children for your labor camps. Vex-Tar's blood grew cold. Those operations had been classified imperial secrets. How could these primitives know such details? I do not know what lies you have been told, he said slowly. But the Zelkari Empire brings order and prosperity to backward worlds. We are offering your people the same opportunity. Ambassador Choi exchanged a glance with Captain Lee before responding. Admiral, we appreciate the offer, but Earth must respectfully decline. We propose instead a treaty of mutual respect and non-interference. We will not interfere with your internal affairs, and you will not interfere with ours. Vex-Tar burst into harsh laughter. You think your tiny world can negotiate with the Zelkari Empire? We control thousands of systems and command fleets that could turn your planet to ash. We understand your military capabilities, Choi replied calmly. We also understand that warfare brings suffering to innocent people on both sides. Surely we can find a peaceful solution. The only peaceful solution is your immediate surrender, Vex-Tar declared, his patience finally exhausted. Your world will become a Zelkari colony. Your people will serve the Empire. This discussion is over. Captain Lee spoke for the first time since entering the chamber. Ambassador, I believe diplomatic efforts have failed. Choi nodded sadly. So it seems. Admiral Vex-Tar, we sincerely regret that you have chosen this path. Guards, escort these creatures to a holding cell. Vex-Tar ordered. We will use them as examples when we broadcast our victory to their pathetic world. As the humans were led away, Vex-Tar felt a surge of satisfaction. Another species had fallen victim to the same delusion of independence. And a quote, they would learn quickly enough. Weapons officer, target the largest population center on the third planet. Prepare for demonstration bombardment. Yes, sir. Targeting the city they call New York. Plasma cannons charged and ready. Fire. The massive energy beams lanced down toward Earth's surface, carrying enough power to vaporize entire city blocks. Vex-Tar watched with satisfaction as the weapons struck their target. Then his satisfaction turned to confusion, then to shock. Sir, sensors show no damage to the target zone, reported the weapons officer, panic creeping into his voice. That is impossible. Check your equipment. Equipment is functioning perfectly, sir. The energy beams struck some kind of planetary shield system. Vex-Tar stared at the tactical display showing Earth surrounded by a faint energy barrier that had absorbed his fleet's most powerful weapons without effort. What kind of primitive world has planetary shields? In their holding cell, Ambassador Choi spoke quietly to Captain Lee. Send the signal. Protocol 7 is authorized. Lee activated a small device hidden in his uniform. The message it transmitted was brief but carried enormous significance across the solar system. Aboard the UES Seoul, the automated systems received Captain Lee's authorization code and immediately broadcast to every human vessel in the system. Throughout the outer planets, massive ships that had waited silently for decades began powering up their engines. Admiral Vex-Tar was still trying to understand how Earth possessed planetary shields when his sensor operator made an announcement that would haunt his dreams forever. Admiral, we are detecting multiple large contacts decloaking throughout the system. Energy signatures are massive, far exceeding our vessel's capabilities. On the tactical display, 15 enormous ships appeared as if materializing from nothing. Each vessel dwarfed the largest Zelkari warship, and their energy readings suggested technology decades beyond anything the Empire possessed. This is impossible, Vex-Tar whispered. Our intelligence said they were primitive. Ambassador Choi's voice came over the communication system, no longer diplomatic, but carrying the weight of absolute authority. Admiral Vex-Tar, you have attacked a peaceful world and rejected all offers of honorable resolution. Earth's defense forces are now authorized to respond with appropriate force. Surrender immediately, or face the consequences of your actions. For the first time in his military career, Admiral Vex-Tar felt fear. Admiral Sung-Min Kang stood on the bridge of the UES Sejong, humanity's most advanced dreadnought, watching as his fleet emerged from decades of hiding. Around him, officers worked with calm efficiency despite the historic nature of the moment. Today, Earth would reveal its true strength to the galaxy. All vessels report ready, Admiral, announced his communications officer. Fleet deployment complete. Through the massive view screen, Kang could see the Zelkari conquest fleet spread across space like toys compared to the human dreadnoughts. The alien vessels, which had seemed so threatening just hours ago, now appeared small and fragile. Open a channel to the Zelkari flagship, Kang ordered. The view screen shifted to show Admiral Vex-Tar's bridge. The alien commander looked stunned. his scales pale with shock as he stared at sensor readings that defied everything he thought he knew about primitive species. "I am Admiral Sung-Min Kang, of the Earth Defense Force," Kang began, his voice calm but carrying absolute authority. "You have attacked our world and threatened our people. This was a mistake." Vextar found his voice. "This is impossible. Our intelligence showed your species had no spacefaring capability. Your intelligence showed what we wanted it to show," Kang replied. "For 50 years, Earth has been preparing for this day. We knew eventually someone would come to conquer us. We decided to be ready. We knew." On the bridge of the UES Incheon, Commander Haejin Park watched the tactical display with professional satisfaction. Her ship held position near Jupiter. Weapons systems fully charged but not yet targeted. The entire human fleet maintained perfect formation. A demonstration of discipline that would have impressed even Zelkari military observers. "Commander, the Busan and Jeju are requesting permission to demonstrate our capabilities," reported her weapons officer. "Granted. Show them what human engineering can accomplish." The UES Busan, one of the newer dreadnoughts, moved forward with surprising grace for such a massive vessel. Its weapons officer selected a large asteroid in the nearby belt, something completely uninhabited but substantial enough to make the demonstration clear. What happened next would be discussed in military academies across the galaxy for centuries to come. The Busan fired a single graviton cannon, a weapon that existed only in theoretical physics texts when the Zelkari Empire was young. The energy beam struck the asteroid and did not simply destroy it. The graviton pulse collapsed the asteroid's molecular structure, causing it to fold in on itself until it vanished completely. Where a mountain-sized rock had existed moments before, now there was only empty space. On the Zelkari flagship, the silence was absolute. Every officer on Vextar's bridge stared at sensor readings that made no sense. The humans had just demonstrated technology that violated several laws of physics, as the Zelkari understood them. That asteroid was solid rock and metal, over 2 kilometers in diameter, whispered the Zelkari sensor operator. It simply ceased to exist. Admiral Kang's voice came across the communication channel again, still perfectly calm. That demonstration used approximately 1% of that vessel's total firepower. Each of my 15 dreadnoughts carries weapons capable of sterilizing entire planets. We choose not to use them. Captain Young-Soo Bae commanded the UES Jeju from a bridge that looked more like a research laboratory than a warship. Advanced holographic displays showed every detail of the battle space, while artificial intelligence systems analyzed Zelkari ship movements and predicted their tactics. "Captain, the Admiral has authorized tactical demonstration 2, announced his first officer. "Very well. Launch fighter squadrons, Alpha and Beta." From the Jeju's launch bays, 50 small craft emerged in perfect formation. To Zelkari sensors, they appeared to be standard fighter aircraft, similar to designs used across the galaxy. Then the fighters activated their quantum drives. What followed was a display of speed and maneuverability that redefined what space combat could look like. The human fighters moved faster than Zelkari sensors could track, appearing and disappearing across the battle space like ghosts. They performed turns that should have crushed their pilots with gravitational force, yet somehow the humans inside remained unharmed. "Admiral," called Captain Bae over the fleet channel. "Our fighters have achieved weapons lock on every Zelkari vessel simultaneously. Time to target acquisition. 12 seconds. The demonstration was clear. If this had been actual combat, the entire Zelkari fleet would have been destroyed in less than half a minute. Vextar's hands shook as he gripped his command chair. His fleet, which had conquered dozens of worlds, had been rendered helpless by technology he could barely comprehend. "How?" he finally managed to ask. Dr. Minseo Kim appeared on the communication channel alongside Admiral Kang. The elderly scientist looked pleased, like a professor whose students had finally understood a difficult lesson. "Admiral Vextar, 50 years ago, one of your scout ships crashed on our world. The crew died, but we recovered their technology and learned much about galactic civilization. We also learned about your empire's methods of conquest. She paused, letting that information sink in. We had a choice: develop weapons to match your existing technology, or advance beyond it entirely. We chose advancement. The human dreadnoughts began moving into a formation that surrounded the Zelkari fleet without appearing threatening. To military observers, it was a masterpiece of tactical positioning. The humans had achieved complete dominance while maintaining the option for peaceful resolution. Our ships use fusion reactors that your scientists consider theoretically impossible. Dr. Kim continued. Our weapons manipulate fundamental forces that your empire has not discovered. Our fighters use artificial gravity systems that eliminate the physical stress of high-speed maneuvers. Commander Park opened her own channel to address the Zelkari fleet directly. Attention Zelkari vessels. You came here expecting easy conquest of a helpless world. Instead, you have discovered that Earth is under the protection of technology you cannot match, and warriors you cannot defeat. Her voice carried the authority of someone who had spent her entire career preparing for this moment. However, we are not monsters. We do not wage war for conquest or revenge. Earth's governments have authorized me to offer you safe passage from our system if you agree to leave immediately and never return. Admiral Kang added his own words. Admiral Vex Tar, your empire has grown powerful through conquest of weaker species. Today, you have encountered a species that is not weaker. We could destroy your entire fleet in minutes, but we choose mercy. The offer hung in space between the two fleets. Hundreds of Zelkari warriors faced 15 human dreadnoughts that could eliminate them without effort. Yet the humans offered peace. Vexus Tar looked around his bridge at officers who had served with him through dozens of conquests. For the first time in his military career, he faced an enemy that was truly superior. The humans possessed overwhelming technological advantages, perfect tactical positioning, and most disturbing of all, they had shown restraint when they could have chosen annihilation. What guarantee do we have that you will honor this offer? Vextar asked. Admiral Kang's reply was immediate. You have the guarantee of a species that could have destroyed you on sight, but chose to talk first. We kept our fleet hidden for 50 years, waiting and hoping this day would never come. When you forced our hand, we still chose demonstration over destruction. Captain Bay's fighters returned to their ships in perfect formation, having proven their point without firing a single weapon. The asteroid demonstration had shown human destructive capability, while the fighter exercise had demonstrated tactical superiority. You have 10 minutes to decide, Admiral, Kang announced. Accept our offer of safe passage, or face the full weight of Earth's defensive capabilities. For the first time in centuries, the Zelkari Empire faced a choice between retreat and annihilation. Admiral Vextar realized that the galaxy had just changed forever, and his empire's age of easy conquest had come to an abrupt end. The countdown began. The news spread across the galaxy faster than anyone thought possible. Within 6 hours of Admiral Vextar's humiliating retreat from Earth's solar system, every spacefaring civilization knew that the mighty Zelkari Empire had been defeated by a previously unknown species. Counselor In-Hai Shin stood in the main briefing room of the UES Sol as it traveled toward the galactic border. As Earth's newly appointed ambassador to galactic affairs, she carried the enormous responsibility of representing humanity to thousands of alien species. Status report, she requested from her aide. Ma'am, we have received over 300 communication requests from various species across the galaxy. Most are asking for confirmation of the Earth incident. 17 different governments are requesting immediate diplomatic contact. Shin studied the galactic map displayed on the briefing room's main screen. Red zones showed Zelkari-controlled territory, while yellow areas marked species living under Imperial occupation. Green dots indicated the few remaining independent worlds. What about the refugee populations? Intelligence reports massive movements in the border regions. Species that have been hiding from the Zelkari for decades are beginning to organize. Some are even calling for open rebellion. The Sol dropped out of faster-than-light travel near a region known as the Neutral Zone, where dozens of species had established hidden colonies beyond Zelkari reach. These were the survivors of conquered worlds, refugees who had escaped imperial occupation to live in the dangerous wilderness of unexplored space. Ma'am, we are receiving a transmission from the Refugee Leadership Council, announced the communications officer. Put it through. The view screen showed a collection of alien beings representing at least 12 different species. At their center stood Thekmari, a tall figure whose people had been among the first to fall to Zelkari expansion 2 centuries ago. Honored representative of Earth, Thekmari began, her voice carrying centuries of pain and hope in equal measure. We speak for the forgotten peoples of this galaxy. Is it true that your world has defeated a Zelkari conquest fleet? Shin considered her words carefully. Earth's governments had debated this moment for decades, knowing that any action they took would have consequences across the galaxy. It is true. Earth's defense forces successfully repelled a Zelkari attack and forced their fleet to withdraw. The effect of her words was immediate. Several alien representatives began speaking rapidly in their own languages, while others simply stared in shock. For 200 years, no one had successfully resisted the Zelkari Empire. We have waited so long for this day, Thekmari continued, tears flowing down her alien features. For centuries, we have dreamed of someone strong enough to stand against the Empire. Tell us, will Earth help us reclaim our stolen worlds? The question hung in the air like a physical weight. Shin understood that her answer would determine the fate of billions of beings across the galaxy. Before I can answer that question, I need to understand what the Zelkari Empire has done to your people. What followed was 3 hours of testimony that changed Shin's understanding of galactic civilization forever. Species after species described the systematic destruction of their cultures, the enslavement of their populations, and the complete eradication of any world that dared resist. The Korun had been peaceful traders whose entire merchant fleet was captured and pressed into imperial service. The Valdris had been artists and philosophers who were forced to labor in weapon factories. The Thekmari had been explorers and scientists who now lived as refugees on barren worlds, their homeworlds strip-mined for resources. Show her the archives, Thekmari said quietly. A holographic display materialized above the conference table, showing images that would haunt Shin's dreams for years to come. Destroyed cities, slave labor camps, Zelkari soldiers executing civilians who refused to work, children separated from their families and shipped to unknown destinations. 200 billion sentient beings, Thekmari said simply. That is our estimate of how many have died under Zelkari occupation, not in warfare, but through systematic oppression and exploitation. Shin closed her eyes for a moment, feeling the weight of moral responsibility settle on her shoulders. When she opened them again, her expression had hardened with resolve. Earth will help, she said simply. Meanwhile, in the depths of space, the Zelkari Empire struggled to understand how their perfectly ordered galaxy had suddenly become chaotic. General Do-hyun Park commanded a small task force of human ships, conducting reconnaissance along the imperial border. Sir, sensors are detecting massive troop movements throughout Zelkari space, reported his intelligence officer. It appears they are reinforcing border positions and recalling fleets from expansion operations. General Park nodded grimly. They are preparing for a war they cannot win, with tactics they do not understand. The human task force consisted of just 5 ships, 3 destroyers, 1 cruiser, and a single dreadnought. Yet this small force carried more firepower than most Imperial sector fleets. General, we are receiving a transmission from Zelkari High Command. They are demanding we identify ourselves and submit to inspection. Let them know we are conducting standard patrol operations in neutral space. and that any attempt to interfere will be considered an act of aggression. The Zelkari response was predictable. 6 Imperial warships moved to intercept the human vessels, expecting to overwhelm them through superior numbers. "Sir, should we withdraw?" General Park smiled. "No. Let us provide another demonstration of human capabilities." The engagement lasted exactly 4 minutes and 37 seconds. The human ships moved with precision that seemed choreographed, their weapons striking with accuracy that defied Zelkari understanding. When the brief battle ended, all 6 Imperial vessels were disabled but intact, their crews unharmed but thoroughly defeated. "Broadcast this engagement to Imperial Command," Park ordered. "Let them understand that Earth's restraint should not be mistaken for weakness." Back on Earth, President Mi Aung-song addressed a joint session of the United Nations, with representatives from every nation watching the proceedings with unprecedented attention. "Fellow humans," she began, "today we face a decision that will define our species' role in galactic civilization. We have the power to remain hidden, to pretend we are still primitive while the galaxy burns around us. Or we can accept the responsibility that comes with our strength." The assembly hall was silent as she continued. "I have reviewed the evidence of Zelkari atrocities. I have spoken with refugee leaders who describe systematic genocide and cultural destruction on a scale that challenges comprehension. We cannot remain neutral in the face of such evil." She paused, looking out at representatives from nations that had once been enemies, but now stood united in the face of galactic crisis. "Therefore, I am announcing the formation of the Guardian Initiative. Earth's fleet will be divided into task forces, each assigned to protect endangered species and defend threatened worlds. We will not conquer, we will not colonize, but we will protect those who cannot protect themselves." The applause was thunderous, but Song raised her hand for silence. "This decision will make us enemies of the Zelkari Empire. They will not tolerate our interference in their expansion. We may face the full weight of their military might, but we will face it together, as one species, united in defense of freedom." General Park received the orders 3 hours later. Earth's fleet would be deployed across the galaxy, small task forces positioned to respond rapidly to Imperial aggression. It was an ambitious plan that would stretch human resources to their limits. "Sir, do we have enough ships to cover the entire galactic border?" asked his aide. Park looked at the deployment map, showing human vessels spread across thousands of light-years of space. Each task force was outnumbered hundreds to one. Yet each possessed technological advantages that made such odds irrelevant. "We have enough," he said with quiet confidence. "The Zelkari Empire is about to discover that humanity fights differently than any species they have previously conquered." Across the galaxy, word of Earth's declaration spread like wildfire. On occupied worlds, resistance movements began emerging from decades of hiding. In refugee camps, leaders started planning return expeditions to their homeworlds. In the halls of imperial power, Zelkari commanders prepared for a war unlike any they had ever fought. The age of easy conquest was over. The age of humanity's guardianship had begun. 6 months after Earth's fleet first revealed itself, the galaxy had transformed in ways no one could have predicted. Admiral Hyjin Park, recently promoted from commander, stood on the bridge of the UES Incheon as it patrolled the former Zelkari border. Where once imperial fleets had enforced brutal occupation, now human task forces maintained peaceful zones where refugee species could rebuild their lives. "Admiral, we are receiving a distress signal from the Thekmari homeworld," reported her communications officer. "Zelkari forces are attempting to retake the planet." Park felt familiar anger rise in her chest. The Thekmari had been the first species to accept Earth's protection, and their return to their ancestral homeworld had become a symbol of hope across the galaxy. Time to intercept? 47 minutes at maximum speed. All ahead full. Signal the task force to prepare for combat operations. The Incheon and her escorts accelerated toward the Thekmari system, their engines pushing the boundaries of what physics should allow. Dr. Min Seo Kim's advances in fusion technology had given human ships capabilities that still amazed their crews. When they arrived, the situation was exactly as Park had feared. 8 Zelkari heavy cruisers were bombarding the planet's surface, while their fighters strafed refugee camps. The aliens had learned nothing from their previous encounters with human forces. "Open a channel to the Zelkari commander," Park ordered. The view screen showed a familiar face. Admiral Vex Tar, the same alien who had led the failed assault on Earth. His expression showed a mixture of rage and desperation. "So the primitive humans come to play protector again," Vex Tar snarled. "You are too late. The Thekmari will pay for their rebellion. Admiral Vex Tar, you will cease your attack on civilian targets immediately and withdraw from this system. This is your only warning." Vex Tar's laugh was bitter. "You think your few ships can defeat my entire squadron? I have learned from our previous encounter. Today, the Empire will have its revenge." Park sighed sadly. Some species seemed incapable of learning from experience. "All ships, execute Formation Delta, weapons free." What followed was less a battle than an object lesson in technological superiority. The human task force moved through the Zelkari formation like dancers, their weapons striking with precision that left enemy vessels disabled but intact. Park had learned that destroying ships only created martyrs, but humiliating defeats undermined Imperial authority. "Zelkari fleet, this is Admiral Park. Your vessels are disabled and at our mercy. We offer you the same choice we have offered before. Depart in peace or face complete destruction." This time, Vex Tar's response was different. Instead of anger or defiance, his voice carried bitter resignation. "How many more times will you defeat us before you simply finish the task? Admiral, we do not seek your destruction. We seek only to protect the innocent from aggression." "Then you have already won," Vex Tar replied quietly. "The Empire cannot function if every expansion meets with defeat. Your very existence makes our way of life impossible." The communication ended, leaving Park to contemplate the truth of those words. Earth's intervention had done more than protect individual worlds. It had undermined the fundamental basis of Zelkari civilization. On the surface of the Thekmari homeworld, Counselor In He Shin watched reconstruction efforts with satisfaction. The capital city, destroyed during the original conquest 2 centuries ago, was slowly being rebuilt with a mixture of traditional Thekmari architecture and modern defensive technology provided by Earth. "Ambassador, we have received an unexpected communication," announced her aide. "Elder Korvash of the Zelkari Peace Movement requests a meeting." Shin raised her eyebrows in surprise. Intelligence reports had mentioned growing dissent within the Zelkari Empire. But this was the first official contact from opposition groups. Where does he wish to meet? Neutral space, aboard an unarmed transport. He says he brings an offer that could end the conflict. 3 days later, Shin found herself in a small conference room aboard a civilian transport vessel, facing an elderly Zelkari whose scales showed the silver of advanced age. Elder Korvash carried himself with dignity despite representing the losing side of a galactic conflict. "Ambassador Shin, I thank you for agreeing to this meeting. I represent a coalition of Zelkari leaders who believe our empire's current path leads only to destruction. What alternative do you propose?" Korvash activated a holographic display showing the current state of the galaxy. Red zones marked areas of continuing Zelkari control, while green regions showed worlds under Earth's protection. The map revealed how dramatically the balance of power had shifted. In 6 months, human intervention has cost the Empire 47 star systems and nearly a quarter of our military fleet. Our economy, built on conquest and exploitation, cannot survive without constant expansion. Shin studied the data with professional interest. Earth's intelligence services had reached similar conclusions, but hearing confirmation from Imperial sources was valuable. "We propose complete Imperial withdrawal from all conquered territories in exchange for guaranteed sovereignty over our original 12 homeworlds. Corvash continued. The Empire will transition to a democratic federation and pay reparations to all species we have wronged. The offer was more comprehensive than anything Earth's diplomatic team had dared hope for. It would mean freedom for hundreds of billions of enslaved beings and the peaceful end of a conflict that could have lasted generations. What guarantee can you offer that these terms will be honored? I will become the new leader of what remains of the Zelkari government. The military faction that supported continued expansion has lost all credibility after repeated defeats. The people are ready for change. Shin considered carefully. Earth's military forces were stretched thin across the galaxy, and any solution that avoided continued warfare would be welcome. I will present your proposal to Earth's leadership and the Council of Liberated Species. However, I must warn you that trust will need to be earned through action, not just words. We understand. As a gesture of good faith, all Zelkari forces will immediately cease offensive operations and begin withdrawing from contested systems. 1 year later, Admiral Sungmin Kang stood on the observation deck of the Guardian Station, humanity's new mobile command base. Through the transparent aluminum, he could watch ships from dozens of species docking at the station's numerous bays. Admiral, the Galactic Accord ceremony is ready to begin, announced his aide. Kang nodded and made his way to the station's main assembly hall. Representatives from over 200 species had gathered to sign the treaty that would formally end the Zelkari Empire and establish new principles of galactic governance. President Mi Youngsong took the podium first, addressing an audience that represented the most diverse gathering in galactic history. Citizens of the galaxy, we gather today not to celebrate victory over a defeated enemy, but to establish principles that will prevent future conflicts. The Galactic Accords establish fundamental rights: the right of species to self-determination, the right to be free from conquest and exploitation, and the obligation of stronger species to protect those who cannot protect themselves. Elder Corvash, now Prime Minister of the Zelkari Federation, spoke next. His words carried the weight of centuries of imperial oppression finally coming to an end. My people have much to atone for. We built an empire on the suffering of others and believed might alone gave us the right to rule. Earth has taught us that true strength comes from protecting the weak, not exploiting them. The ceremony continued for hours as representatives signed the documents that would reshape galactic civilization. The Guardian Fleet was formalized as an international peacekeeping force, funded by voluntary contributions from member species, but commanded by Earth due to humanity's technological advantages. Captain Young Subei, now an admiral himself, addressed the gathered crowd about the fleet's new mission. The Guardian Fleet will patrol known space, responding to threats against peaceful species and preventing the rise of new expansionist empires. We are not conquerors or rulers, but protectors of the freedom and dignity of all sentient life. Dr. Min Seo Kim, now in her 80s but still brilliant, announced Earth's decision to share defensive technologies with any species committed to peaceful coexistence. Advanced shield generators, medical technology, and communication systems would be freely provided to prevent future humanitarian disasters. As the ceremony concluded, Admiral Park found herself thinking about how much had changed since that first day when Zelkari ships had entered Earth's solar system. Humanity had gone from hiding in the shadows to becoming the moral center of galactic civilization. Admiral, we are receiving reports from across the galaxy, her communications officer announced. Former Zelkari slave worlds are celebrating their freedom. Refugee populations are returning to their homeworlds. Trade agreements are being signed between species that have been enemies for centuries. Park smiled as she watched the celebration continue around her. Through the observation windows, she could see the first graduating class of the Interspecies Academy, where young beings from across the galaxy learned together and formed friendships that would shape the future. Earth's children were growing up in a galaxy where different species worked together, where conflicts were resolved through diplomacy rather than warfare, and where the strong protected the weak instead of exploiting them. Set course for the outer rim, Park ordered. There are always new challenges to face and new species to protect. The UES Incheon turned toward deep space, its crew ready to defend freedom wherever it might be threatened. Behind them, the Guardian Station continued its work of building a better galaxy, one species at a time. Humanity had found its place among the stars, not as conquerors, but as guardians of hope.